That's right, no creepy school teachers or cheesy 50s creatures in this anime feature. If anything, this show is an action-induced seizure. So hey, let's talk about it. I'm sorry, that was a cheesy rhyme, but that was the only time I could ever think of a line for something like this. Anyways, Black Lagoon. Now the setup for the show is actually pretty simple. It follows a group of characters known as the Lagoon Company, consisting of Rock, Revy, Dutch, and Benny, as it follows their misadventures throughout the entire series and showing how they take jobs as mercenaries through various clients as well as their overseer hotel in Moscow. Along the way, they come across a very colorful cast of side characters, and they get into various unfortunate situations, I'll say that. Now before I go into details about what I thought was good and bad about the show, let me go ahead and describe the characters a little bit for you, just so you know what you're going into. The first character I'm going to get into is Rock. Now, he's a Japanese businessman. He's living a pretty quiet, normal life. He is trying to make himself in the business world, but while on a job for his company, he gets taken hostage by the Lagoon Company, specifically by Revy and Dutch. And originally they were going to try to get a ransom out of him, but through a series of events they actually find out he's integrated into their crew, and now he goes under the name of Rock. I can't remember exactly what his real name was before he became Rock, so I'm just going to have to keep calling him by that name for now. But if you watch the show, you'll understand what he goes through. Overall, Rock's a pretty enjoyable character, or at least a likable character. He walks that fine line of being a normal person who's caught in a very dangerous situation, and it's all these crazy things happening where people are shooting each other, people are just blowing each other to high hell, and he's just like, this is really crazy, and he just, some points where he can almost get to that point of getting as crazy as everybody else, but he just walks that edge. He walks that really tightrope edge. And much to the chagrin of some of his other co-workers, he is probably the most normal out of everybody else in this show. Now, two of the other characters, Dutch and Benny, are actually pretty simple to wrap up. Dutch is pretty much the leader of the Lagoon Company. He deals with all the comes and goings of the company and figure out what clients they're going to take and how their job is going to work out and where they need to drop off their package or for their supplier or whatever their assignment needs to be. Benny is pretty much just the hacker. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say about him. He's an overall laid-back, decent guy out of everybody else in the crew, but there's really not a whole lot I can say about him. He's just likable, and he's the hacker. I mean, if you guys want anything to break into, you pretty much ask this guy. Now we come to my favorite character in the series, and probably a favorite for a lot of other people, is Revy. She's one of those shoot first, ask questions later types, and I mean that in quite a literal sense. One could argue she's actually the star of the show. I mean, 90% of the action, or 90% of the story, happens around her. All the big action scenes belong to her in some way, shape, or form. And it's just so much fun to watch, and she's just the most, out of everyone in the entire crew, she's the most entertaining to watch. Allow me to sum it up like this. Imagine all the gun-wielding badassness of, say, Ripley from the Alien movies, or Sarah Connor from T2, add in the psychotic, sadistic, and damaged personality of Elizabeth Salander from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, you pretty much have Revy from Black Lagoon. I'll say this, when the crap starts to hit the fan or something pisses her off, she'll probably be the first to pull out her gun and put a bullet in someone's head in about less than 10 seconds. And I'm being generous because in reality, it's probably less than 3. I'm telling you people, this woman is more gun crazy than a pack of rednecks at an NRA convention. Now that I've described the characters of the show and what you're going to be dealing with in the course of the couple of seasons, let me go ahead and describe my pros and cons with this show because they are varied. First, I'll start with the good. Now, like the beginning of my video where I said that this show is an action-induced seizure, I meant that. There is a ton of action in this series. It's like if you took all the action of the Die Hard movies and you put them all in one show. It's pretty much like that. And the best part of it is that the action has a lot of variety throughout the course of the show. Whenever you have to deal with a certain episodic or story arcs, where you have different situations for the characters. Sometimes they'll be having action takes place on a boat, or underwater, or in back alleys in Roanapur, the main city of the show, in churches, I mean, there's so much action in various situations they get into in the course of the series that it's just a lot of fun to see where the different locations are and what they make use of the environments. Another big plus for this show is the soundtrack. I mean, this thing hits all the right notes at the right time. I mean, whenever you need a quiet, somber moment or a moment of reflection or peace and quiet, this is just perfect for what it needs to be, and it's relaxing, it does what it needs to do, but when it needs to kick into the action and break out the rock, it's just awesome to hear. Not to mention the theme song is probably one of the best I've ever heard for the beginning of a show. It's just, whenever you hear the opening song to Black Lagoon, it sticks in your mind and it's really fun to listen to. I mean, I have it on my iPhone and I just listen to it all the time. It's such a good theme. And it just helps sum up the tone of the show of what you're getting yourself into. My last plus for this show is that the side characters they do have, or the villains, or the conflicts that arise during this show, are actually really interesting to watch. Whenever you see some of the side villains or some of the other side characters, they become very memorable, like Edda from the Ripoff Church, or Chinglish, or this one little story arc, and I won't spoil what exactly is involved, but it involves a pair of Romanian twins. And oh my lord. Let's just say I did not expect that show to get as screwed up and dark as it did during that little segment. And anyone who's watched the show will know exactly what I'm talking about. It is both sad, it's tragic, and a little screwed up. Actually, no. Little screwed up, it's really screwed up when it comes to what it involves with these twins. It's really crazy. And so I would recommend it just to see those side characters. They are very memorable. Now that I've gotten my positives out of the way, there are a few issues I do have with this show overall. It's something that ruins my enjoyment of it, but I feel like if anyone is going to expect something deeper with this show, you might not want to look into this, because that leads into my complaints. My first complaint overall is that, for all intents and purposes, Rock and Revy are the stars of the show, and Dutch and Benny don't really do all that much during the course of the series. It's not to say that they're bad. It just made me feel like it felt like they were relegated to the role of a side character when it just so happened they were thrown in to be main characters. Which is weird because I can't think of a single segment of the show where they took charge or they were like a centerpiece. Like, you never felt like they were working as a team. It's more like Revy was the one giving orders so that way she could shoot everybody. And Rock was the one who is kind of that contrast of the normal world, and Revy is sort of the chaotic crime world. And watching those two go at it was really fun to watch. But Dutch and Benny, they just made it feel like they were useless, or they could have been easily side characters and just let Rock and Revy do all the show. In fact, probably a more accurate form of this show's title would probably be Rock and Revy with Friends. But then again, that wouldn't have sounded nearly as cool. And the other big problem I have with this show, and this may not be a problem for some people, and I understand that, but this to me felt like it was an element that was presented, but it just never went anywhere. And that is that there's really no sense of an overarching plot. And what I mean by that is that there is no consistent narrative that is sort of hinted to throughout the course of the entire series. Yes, there are recurring characters, but there's never an end goal in mind. I mean, if really, the only ones who have an end goal in mind is sort of Hotel Moscow, which is sort of the overseer client of the Lagoon Company. But they're not the focus of the show. The Lagoon Company is, which is a problem. And so, like, the other characters, like the Lagoon Company itself, is just trying to survive, and you just see their misadventures throughout the course of the series. So it's like one story arc ends, done. Then the next one goes on, and then the next one, and the next one. There wasn't something that was a consistent thing overall. It's not like say at the beginning of the show, and this is not a spoiler because it happens within the first episode, is that when Rock is taken hostage and he is negotiated or trying to be negotiated for the release and for a ransom to his company screws him over. And so I thought, oh, okay, so this is going to be like, he's going to get integrated in the crew, but eventually he's going to get revenge on the company that screwed him over, which would have been a cool idea. But it doesn't go anywhere with that. So it just kind of like, oh, we're going to present this little element of the show, cut, move on to the next story. It was like, you have a good chance for character development and watching these two interact with each other and seeing Rock, Revy, and Dutch and Benny interact with Rock's old world and watching how he's grown into this new character, this new person over the course of being with these people. I thought that would have been a cool element, but then again, it just I do enjoy the show. Let me say this. I do enjoy the show. I just wish they would have had a more overarching plot. I mean, everything about the show is kind of about survival. And I guess on some level that can be argued as the overarching point is what the lengths that people go in order to survive. But in terms of being an actual narrative, there's nothing like saying, oh, well, this new character is going to be integrated into this crew, and this is their story of how he integrates into the crew and what the end goal is. There's nothing like that. I mean, there's just no overarching narrative. My bottom line comes down to this: sweet action, badass soundtrack that also hits the really emotional notes, really cool starring characters with Rock and Revy, but no overarching narrative that has an end goal or point to the show, other than the fact that it's all about survival, which, okay, fair enough, I'll kind of knock that back a little bit. Half of the main cast is overall pretty useless and doesn't do all that much. With those criticisms in mind, but with all the stuff I really did enjoy from the show, I would say Black Lagoon is a fun but a flawed anime. So everybody, that is my review of Black Lagoon. I hope you enjoyed it. So that makes it day 3 of the Spring Break Challenge. Wow, I'm almost over the hump at this point. And so, until next time, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. You name it, I can play it.